Big thank you to Tom Vecchio for filling in for me over the past couple of days here on the solo shot. Tom, as always, did a fantastic job. And because of that, I kind of wish I had taken an extra day off because I had to come back on Wednesday, which meant that in my first day back from a vacation, have to decide what I want to do with Garrett Cole. There's been this stuff with Garrett Cole potentially using some sticky substances on the mound. His spin rate went down big time his last time out, and now he's starting again today, and he's 11-5. And there aren't a lot of no-brainer alternatives on today's slate. So, Tom, if you're listening, if you want to jump in and do this for me, I'd appreciate it because I don't know what to do here. We're going to talk about it, talk through the dilemmas, talk through my thought process on it, and what we're doing with Cole for tonight for MLB DFS. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to break down tonight's 12-game main slate with lock set for 7:05 for tonight. And unfortunately, just like for Tom last night, there's a lot of weather on today's slate, especially a lot of rain in the east. There's a chance of rain in Philadelphia for the Phillies and the Braves. Rain looks decently constant, so I keep tabs on that one during the day. Lower rain odds in Baltimore for the Mets and the Orioles. Rain is still at least in kind of the forecast. I check back on it later. No big concerns there. It's similar forecast in Pittsburgh for the Dodgers and the Pirates. Check back on that one later as well. Rain is likely in Cincinnati for the Reds and the Brewers. It appears to be light, but it's something that could interrupt things there. No rain in Minneapolis, but it is 91 degrees. That is a bump up to hitters for the Twins and the Yankees. That's where Garrett Cole's pitching. There is a slight chance of rain in St. Louis. They host Cleveland. It's on the lower end of the concern for games for tonight. And finally, winds are out to right field at 11 miles per hour in Anaheim for the Angels and the Royals. It is just 70 degrees there, though. So that's on the cooler end from a temperature perspective for today. So you can upgrade them from a 70-degree game, but don't upgrade them relative to other games on this slate. So the games to monitor for tonight are the games in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Philly. I would say the most concerning ones appear to be Cincinnati and Philly, but I'd check back on that later. We'll talk about that on the 4 p.m. show for today. It's our 4 p.m. stream on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. I'll be there at 4 p.m. taking your questions live on air, talking pitchers, stacks, one-offs, process questions, whatever is on your mind. I'll be there today at 4 p.m. to talk through that and give you, hopefully, an updated look at the weather, and hopefully it's a better look than what it's looking like as of right now. Also, make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, no matter where you get your podcasts. I was out tomorrow, but Brandon Gadula did still do a preview for this week's PGA event. Did that one by himself, so check out Brandon. No dumb takes from me there, so a relief for sure. Check out Brandon by searching for the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Hey, just choked in my own spit. Really fun way. Welcome back to work, Jim. Choking on your own spit. Hey, soccer fans! Just excited about this read for Captain Morgan. This season, FanDuel and Captain Morgan are teaming up to give you a one-of-a-kind soccer contest. Introducing the Captain Morgan Soccer Pick'em, a weekly fantasy contest that's entirely free to play. The contest is simple. All you have to do is make quick predictions for Saturday games this soccer season. You'll earn points for each correct pick and compete for a chance to win up to $3,000 in prizes every single week. Head over to FanDuel and enter the Captain Morgan Soccer Pick'em today. Must be 21 plus to participate. For more details, visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel Fantasy app. Eligibility restrictions apply, and don't forget to make your game day more delicious and sub in the captain. Pitching preview for this Wednesday main slate, as mentioned, our arch nemesis now, Garrett Cole, is 11-5. Lance Lynn checks in at $10,800 on FanDuel. Austin Gomber is $9,500. And then Casey Mize, Alek Manoah, Zach Eflin, and Nathan Eovaldi are the others at $8,000 or higher. Now, let's start things off here with Cole and figure out what to do with him because he is kind of the central question for today's slate. As mentioned, the spin rate went down for him the last time out, which happened to be the day the owners were having meetings about pitchers using sticky substances. The consensus was they'd start to crack down on that stuff. Probably not a coincidence given the way Garrett Cole kind of hemmed and hawed his way through a press conference earlier this week. So it means we have to decide whether we can trust the data on Cole for tonight. Cole was facing the Rays that last time out, and he gave up 5 runs in 5 innings. So obviously that was not great. And he did seem to have less movement on his pitches. Don't look at velocity when it comes to the sticky stuff. You look at spin rate, and that determines more movement versus velocity. And it did seem to have an effect where the movement was decreased on specifically his fastball. It was the lowest it's been all year. But he wasn't terrible in that game specifically. He still had a 15.2% swinging strike rate that is in line with his full season mark. The Rays were chasing pitches outside the zone, and it was also their 3rd time seeing him this year. It's their 2nd time in 5 starts. So it's possible it was just one bad game. It's also possible he'll come back to earth from a strikeout perspective, and if that happens, we don't want to blow 11-5 on him. So what I want to do with Cole is hedge a bit here. I'm still going to use him in tournaments. I think he's worth that because there is a chance he's still the usual Cole. That 1 star could have been a blip. And if we get the usual Cole against the Twins, he'll be worth his salary for sure, especially at what I would expect to be decreased popularity. I'm just going to have lower exposure to him than I usually would in a spot like this. I think that there's a legit reason to expect a downtick for Garrett Cole. And if we get a downtick, he's not going to be worth 11.5. So to me, I'm saying 33% or so. That's probably where I'm at on Garrett Cole. Usually this would be like a 50% or so night. So whatever you would normally be on Garrett Cole, I would downgrade that from an exposure perspective because he's still a good play, but I don't think he's a must-have play. And Garrett Cole is still going to throw hard. He's still going to be a good pitcher. It's just a question of will he get the same number of strikeouts he did before. He looked better than the overall numbers looked last week. So I am going to downgrade Cole from where I would be previously, but I'm not out. And that's how I'm handling him for tonight. So I am going to downgrade Cole. I'm not out. And but I think that, being less aggressive with him than we usually would be is the right way to play things for today. Part of the reason why I can't just bail on Cole and say, no, I want no part of him when he's clearly not going to be at his full self is that there aren't a ton of great alternatives on today's slate. So when you pull up the player pool, you may be surprised to see Austin Gomber as the 3rd-ranked pitcher from a salary perspective, all the way up at $9,500. And that surprised me, too. I thought that, when we're going through the rundown for today, I'd be able to go with Cole plus some other high-salary pitcher and have Gomber be the value play. Didn't get that. So Gomber is actually up here in the stud section. So that's annoying, but I still think he's worth the salary, and I am willing to pay it personally and rank him number 2 behind Cole for tonight. Gomber's facing the Marlins on the road. That's a big part of it. Obviously, it's a big park factor upgrade for Gomber as opposed to pitching at Coors. The Marlins have an 89 WRC plus against lefties with a 28% strikeout rate. So that's good. That's a big plus matchup for lefty. But Gomber himself has been awesome recently. He's been starting to throw his changeup more and more as the year has gone along, which is a good thing because the whiff rate against that pitch is the highest of any pitch he's got, according to Baseball Savant. Not shockingly, as the usage on a high whiff pitch has gone up, his strikeout rate has gone up as well. Over the 5 starts with more changeups and fewer four-seam fastballs, Gomber has a 2.84 skill interactive ERA with a 29% strikeout rate. He is still doing his usual good job of suppressing hard contact, so he's getting more strikeouts without sacrificing his previous pluses. That seems like a good thing. I'm not sure if it'll stick because it is just a 5-start sample, and he did face some pretty bad teams within it, but it's at least interesting, and this slate is far from loaded at pitcher. It's enough for me to be invested in Gomber for tonight. The reason I cannot put him above Cole is pitch count because Gomber has gone less than 80 pitches in 2 straight games. He has gone more than 100 twice, so it's not like he can't go long, but they're willing to yank him for a pinch hitter for other reasons, and that's a risk that Cole does not have as he's in Minneapolis for tonight. Between the two, I will have Cole ranked higher, largely as a result of pitch count and length, but I think Gomber's legit. I am down to use him even at what seems like a high salary, and I think that he is the number 2 for today behind Garrett Cole. So if you don't want to go Cole for whatever reason, there are plenty, I think that Gomber would be the top alternative for me for today. So we couldn't go Gomber for the value plays. Honestly, the value plays are not great. The one guy I do think is interesting down there is Alek Manoah. I talked about him last week against the Marlins, and it did not work out. They had 16 home runs in that game. It was not great. I'm willing to give it a try again tonight, even in a tougher matchup. Manoah's facing the White Sox, and we talk about them against lefties for the most part. Manoah's a righty, but they're good against righties too. They have a 108 WRC plus with an 11% walk rate. So it is a risky spot for sure, and that should be factored in here with Manoah. But the White Sox aren't a super low strikeout team, and Manoah is one of the few guys on this slate who might be able to cook up some upside of his own. In the 2 starts, Manoah has a 30% strikeout rate. He had a 12.2% swinging strike rate in that bad game against Miami. He just kind of walked too many guys and let up too many home runs. Shocker that would be a bad thing. And that's a risk against the White Sox too. As mentioned, they're very good against righties. So I think that's going to make me rank Manoah behind Cole and Gomber. I think when we have guys who we're at least semi-confident in, we can rank them above Manoah. But I do think the upside with Manoah is enough to justify using him either way. He has a 30% strikeout rate across those 2 starts. That ranks second on the slate in each guy's most relevant sample, and it's actually first among those I project to go longer than 75 pitches. More on that and things to watch. But I think that's some upside there. Manoah is not someone you want to use if you are risk averse, because there's a lot of risk here. He is purely for tournaments, but he has upside, and I would happily take that on this slate. So to me, the rankings for tonight, all things considered, considering outside factors, considering salaries, matchups, et cetera, Cole 1, Gomber 2, Manoah 3 as kind of the top 3 guys for tonight. And Manoah is $8,500. So decent value with some upside, just a lot of risk to be sure. I think the stacks are better for today. The pitchers are shaky, stacks are not. Let's start things off here with Milwaukee, a team that's been scorching hot recently. They've won 13 of their past 16 games. The offense is not the main cog in that. They've mostly been just pitching really well, shocker, but I think they will hit the ball well tonight. And I want to stack them here against Vladimir Gutierrez. Again, make sure you check back on the weather for this game, as it does appear to be some rain in Cincinnati. So check back on that later. But assuming we get the all clear, I do like Milwaukee for today. Gutierrez definitely checks a couple of key stacking boxes. He doesn't look like a big strikeout guy. He has a 15% strikeout rate across 2 starts with a 6.3% swinging strike rate. And he'll also let up some base runners via walks. So that's a good thing. He's also not likely a ground ball guy. He hasn't had a mark above 45% at any stop so far in professional ball. So those are 3 of the big check marks to mark for a pitcher. The only lingering question is whether Gutierrez will let up hard contact. Thus far, he's only allowed 21% of the balls in play against him to have an exit velocity of at least 95 miles per hour. That has kept his ERA low despite the bad plate discipline numbers. So that's good. I'm just not sure if it'll necessarily stick, because the sample is just 29 balls in play. Generally, you need 60 to 80 or so to draw big conclusions. So that's why I'm okay potentially overlooking that one. If he does give up any amount of hard contact, there will be a lot of runs against Gutierrez. I don't know if that'll happen, but he checks enough boxes where I'll take some presumptive swings and see if it works. And that means stacking the Brewers in this spot for today. I also think it means we can finally get back to Christian Yelich, because I had been worried about him previously due to the injuries. It seemed like he wasn't fully healthy, but seems like he's showing life again. Of the 6 barrels that Yelich has had so far this year, 3 have come in the past 5 games. He is getting more lift in the ball. He is still striking out a bit, but it's manageable. So I think you snag Yelich at $3,800, and then everybody else on this team is $2,900 or lower. Omar Narvaez specifically is a pretty underrated part of the stack, assuming he plays. So Yelich, Narvaez, both guys with some upside here. Well, I'd plug in there and see what happens against Gutierrez and see if he does wind up allowing more hard contact than he has thus far. I actually think both sides of tonight's game between the Mets and the Orioles are stackable. We'll talk about the Mets here. We'll talk about the Orioles in things to watch as well. The Mets are facing Matt Harvey, which is why they're here. Harvey is still what we talked about last week, where I don't think he's as bad as a 6.62 ERA says, but there are reasons his ERA is that high, and even when he does progress, it won't be someone we don't want to stack against. He's been throwing his sinker more often over his past 9 starts, and that's kept the hard hit rate lower. It's 37%. It's actually a bit better than league average. He's still letting up 35% fly ball rate, which is about league average. And so you look at the batted ball numbers, you see they're roughly league average. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I think with his play discipline data, he needs to be better than league average to get by. He has a 19% strikeout rate in that 9-start sample with an 8% walk rate, so he's letting up a lot of balls in play. He has a 4.70 skill interactive ERA, and the results are pretty bad. He's let up 5+ runs in 4 of his past 5 starts. One of those was against the Mets, the same team he'll face tonight. The lone exception in there was when Harvey was on a short stint. He was pitching on 3 days rest, so left the game to 3 innings. So he's had a lot of really bad results recently, including against the team he'll face for today. I really think it's a good idea to keep stacking against Harvey until we see movement in his peripherals, which we have not seen as of yet. So I think the Mets are a really high-quality stack for today, and a team that I would like to get to pretty often. With Harvey, we do want to heavily favor lefties facing him. They have the much preferred batted ball numbers versus Harvey. That puts us on Jonathan VR, Dominic Smith, and Francisco Lindor. Lindor finally looks like his bat is coming around now, so definitely in on him. I would also mention that Billy McKinney is interesting as a value play. He's a lefty, so benefits there from Harvey's splits. He has a 211 ISO versus righties with a 45% fly ball rate, so if you're looking for a salary saver in tournaments, trying to get to Cole with Lindor, VR, and Smith, I think that McKinney could be a way to get there. And I do like him a lot as a tournament play as a way to save some salary as well. Our third stack is a repeat matchup from last week. That is Jake Odorizzi facing the Red Sox for the second straight start. The first start for Odorizzi did not go well. He let up 3 earned runs in 3 innings, and now he's facing them again, this time in Boston, which leads me to stacking the Red Sox here. And that's not based on the one start he had last week. Odorizzi's numbers overall this year are pretty close to ideal for stacking. He's letting up a 46% hard hit rate and a 44% fly ball rate. He is the only guy on this slate that is sitting above 40% in both departments in their most relevant sample. And it's not likely a small sample thing either, because Odorizzi's been close on both those numbers for his entire career. He's not getting enough strikeouts to cover it up either. He has a 24% strikeout rate this year with a 10.1% swinging strike rate. That means his strikeout rate is more likely to come down than go up. The Red Sox are a really tough team to face. They have a 107 WRC plus against righties with a 190 ISO. A lot of power on this team. You could absolutely put them higher on this list. I would not push back on that at all. I don't, because I expect other teams to put the ball in play more, but I do still think this is a top tier stack no matter what. So I think the Red Sox definitely do stand out for today. Now, specifically which bats to target there, in the past, Odorizzi was someone with reverse platoon splits, where you wanted to prioritize righties against him, but that was when his changeup usage was higher. You tend to see more reverse platoon split tendencies on guys who use a lot of changeups. It's his 18% usage so far this year. So unsurprisingly, since the start of 2019, we've seen lefties do better against Odorizzi than righties. That's good for Rafael Devers and Alex Verdugo. I'm going to be high on those two guys. I'm not out on the righties. I'm just saying that Devers and Verdugo definitely deserve a bump up due to what I would expect to be a movement in the platoon splits against Odorizzi from where he was back in the day. So Devers, Verdugo, definitely guys I want to prioritize for today, and then we'll get to the righties after that. Let's finish up here with things to watch, and I do want to mention a couple of pitchers who might be options, if not for low pitch counts tonight. Those guys are Tony Gonsolin and Shane McClanahan. Gonsolin has made 3 starts in AAA this year before getting the re-promotion to the Dodgers. In those 3 starts, he went 38, 55, and 60 pitches. It's a big injury he's coming off of, so I'd expect him to be around 70 to 75 for tonight, and that's not high enough yet. He's facing the Pirates. He's a good pitcher, but not high enough for me to get in for today. McClanahan, I would kind of just cross off your list until we get movement, on his leash. He has not topped 80 pitches. He's likely to hover around 75 or so. So I'll keep an eye on him. Always check the pitch count to see if it does go up, because once it does go up, I will love him. I'm just not sure if it will. It may not ever go up this year. So until McClanahan's pitch count goes up, he's not usable. So monitor that, but don't use him just yet. I mentioned before the Orioles grade out well. They're facing Taijuan Walker, and Walker has had good results this year. And the Orioles are not a great team. That's why they are down here as opposed to being in the stacking section. But there is some shakiness in the peripherals for Walker. He's actually allowed a higher hard hit rate and a higher fly ball rate than Harvey since he increased his splitter usage 7 starts ago. His strikeout rate is 21%. I think the Orioles are a tremendous tournament stack, given most people will go to the Mets in this same game. But overall, both sides of this game are solid. I would not be opposed to stacking just both and, playing it out that way. But I do think that if you're playing tournaments, single entry type stuff, I think the Orioles are actually kind of interesting as a tournament stack for today. For one more stacking option, you could check out the Phillies. They're facing Tucker Davidson. Davidson looks like he'll get ground balls, and that's why the Phillies were not in the top 3 for today. But the rest of the stuff should be there. Doesn't profile as being overpowering. Davidson walked a lot of guys in the lower minors. So it's a similar checklist to last night where you bump up the righties against the lefty, but keep Bryce Harper firmly near the top of the stud discussion. He's undersalaried. So just check out Harper despite the fact of being a lefty on lefty and check out the Phillies there. But I would rank them below the Orioles in addition to the 3 teams we discussed in the stacking section. That is all that we have for today. I guess we'll see how things play out with Garrett Cole. We'll get another data point for tonight, I guess. If you are, I'm excited about that personally, but we'll see how things play out for him. I do think he's a top option, but I do not feel super confident in that, and we'll see how things play out for tonight. Back again at 4 p.m. today for the Q&A stream on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Make sure you are subscribed there, but also check out our PGA podcast via Brandon Gadula here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, which you can subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, radio.com, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there. If you have any questions for me before 4 p.m., I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, their video producer, for setting up the video broadcast for today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your MLB DFS lineups for tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been the Solo Shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.